All right, hello and welcome to Corner Comics, your weekly comic book reading club. It is I, the Burkoff. I never do that. I was thinking I should announce who I am sometimes, so
On
people,
occasion, yeah.
you know, so people know. This is your weekly comic book reading club. We get together, we share a few comics with each other, and then we talk about those comics. I'm joined by my friends Russ and Emmanuel. How you guys doing this weekend?
I'm doing great, dancing on the edge of a knife and living my very best life.
That was beautiful. That was
Thank
beautiful.
you.
I am doing immensely great, not just great, but immensely great. And I strive to continue to do that.
Nice. All right. Where can people find you guys on the interwebs?
Well, you can find me a few places. You can find me on the Twitter at Walrus, WALLRUSS. You can also find me at blacksuperherofan.com and comiccreatorsofcolor.com. Hope to see you there.
You can find me on the Instagram at Emmanuel, spelled EM_MAN_YOU_EL. Emmanuel.
All right. Very,
Cousin to Kal-El.
very cool. All right, so we've got six comics again this week. It would have been just four, but Russ was able to get it together and give us two. I'm gonna do my two. Manuel, you'll do your two, and then Russell, you'll do your two last. My first one this week, Bucky Barnes, The Winter Soldier, number 3. This is from the 2014-2015 run. My second comic is Uncanny Avengers number 1. This is 2013. This is Rick Remender's run on that. Manuel, your two?
My two comics are, well, the first one, excuse me, is War of the Realms, Strikeforce, The Land of Giants, Marvel comic. The second comic is Bang. That is a comic by, I believe it's Image from Dark Horse. I'm sorry, Dark Horse comic.
It does kind of feel like an image book.
Yeah, it does.
It,
It does.
yeah, it does. I was
Issue
thinking the
number
same
one.
thing. Okay, my two books are Assassination. That's the pun.
Yep.
It's by Image. And my second book is Red Hood and the Outlaws, the latest book. And that is the Crazy Trinity. And we'll get more on that later. But it's a DC book because you guys always bring Marvel. So, no.
Yeah, the two that I brought, I was sort of digging through some of my back issues, and I was like, yeah, what can I bring on that we haven't talked about that I really like? So these are just two from my long box in the closet that I pulled out.
Nice.
All right, should we just jump right into it?
Yes. Tell us about Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier.
All right, so Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier. This is, I think it was 11 or 12 issues total for the run. This is probably one of the most in the weeds Marvel books I've ever pulled. There's a lot going on here, a lot of stuff sort of funneled into this series. So you have Bucky chasing Loki, sort of in the overall story, for this drug that Loki has. He finds out that the drug is manufactured on this planet called Mir Zibo, which is where this issue takes place. And so it's Bucky and Daisy Johnson meeting with the Empress or the ruler of this planet and finding out about this drug. I picked this up originally because it was just sort of this crazy space opera thing. It's almost like the Nick Fury series they did back in the day, where he was traveling from planet to planet. And so I kind of like that idea. The artwork really grabbed me. It's watercolors. It's almost like I'm trying to think of what his name is. Starts with an S. Brian Steinshall, I think, is his last name, but he does a lot of watercolors for Marvel. And so it just kind of reminded me of that, and I really enjoyed sort of what this did compositionally. So kind of curious what your guys' thoughts are.
I want to take a first stab at it, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
All right. This is, to me, it's interesting that the quest is for a particular drug because this comic book makes me feel like I have ingested something. I like it. As a side note, don't do drugs, kids. But I like it, and it's interesting. It really is interesting. From the art itself, that pulls me in, and then the storyline, which I'm I kind of got. Now, this just been issue number, I think 3, right?
Yeah.
Issue number 3. There's some back stuff that went on, and there's some stuff that's going to happen eventually as well. But this is a good pausing and introduction to what the storyline. I was not really that familiar with Daisy Johnson before Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the television series, and Bucky, as we know from the Avengers movies. He has a certain personality, but to see them two be a team, essentially, it's really good. I like it. I'm intrigued. It still kind of gives me a drug effect. Again, don't do drugs, kids.
Oh, okay. So let's see. Heavy metal, psychedelic futurism. So here's what I saw. And I sort of summed it up. This is like Bucky in space on shrooms.
Yeah.
Or like Bucky Rogers in the 22nd century.
Yeah.
So it made me think of Captain Kirk and Buck Rogers. Captain Kirk and Buck Rogers are always the coolest persons in the future, and they always get the queen. They just do. That's how they roll. They got it like that. And Bucky was no different. He walked in there and knew it. He was going to see the queen, and the queen was going to see him. And he really had to do nothing but be himself. He didn't, and what's interesting in this story, he didn't kick any ass in this show at all, in this episode or whatever, right? He didn't fight anybody. He didn't smack anybody with his arm. He didn't do any tech. He just showed up and swagged through this whole issue, right? I'm not mad at that, but there wasn't really any conflict in there other than Daisy Johnson being frustrated from all the sexual tension that was going on around her that she wasn't part of. So it made me think, yeah, this is like if you're high a little on life or whatever substance that is legally obtainable in your area, this would probably be a very enjoyable series. I did miss the conflict there. Like, it's just story unfolding. And that's when I looked, I was like, oh, is this the first episode? This can't be. Because if there's the first issue, there had to be some kind of conflict to initiate it. So that's when I looked and noticed it wasn't the first issue. So what's missing for me is I don't see any conflict. There's just flirting and frustration in this book. Go ahead.
Although there is a panel where there's a conflict between Bucky Barnes' face and the floor when he face plants.
Yeah. But that's all like
I'm stretching.
Yeah,
I'm reaching.
It's funny, but in the end, his pimpiosity is what really moves the story forward. I am Buck Rogers, I am Captain Kirk, and all women, all your bases all belong to us. And that's sort of how he seemed like he walked through the book. This is not to say I didn't enjoy it. I do like the art, it's very stylistic. And it made me feel like Bucky was in the future. If I didn't know better, I would say he got transported 2,000 years into the future and it's just messing with the current space queen. But with Daisy Johnson, as sort of the reality check, say, no, I'm just dealing with some, stupid people and I got to do what I got to do. So did I enjoy it? Yes. I did miss conflict.
Okay. Yeah, I will say, so the issue after this does take place in the future. There's some time travel that goes on. You get a future Bucky that comes in to this story. So you do get the conflict through the whole arc. I thought issue 3 would be a good one to throw at you guys because it kind of gives you a little bit of everything in terms of the setting, the characters. It does sort of set up a little bit of the plot. So if you did enjoy it, I would highly recommend going back to issue 1 and reading through it because it's a pretty quick read.
I'm gonna have to make sure I get my proper controlled substance so I can partake in its wonder and splendor fully.
All right. Any final thoughts? All right.
No, sir.
Moving on to the next issue, Uncanny Avengers #1. I chose this one because I like Rick Remender and I like the story that this eventually leads up to. So a little backstory, this takes place after Avengers versus X-Men. So Cyclops has killed Professor Xavier, and this is the Avengers' effort to sort of make peace with the mutants and move forward in the world. And so the Uncanny Avengers are formed as a joint task force between the Avengers and the mutants. And trying to think, this leads up to the Axis event, which is several months down the line, several issues later. And the final panel where Red Skull is lifting up Xavier's brain out of his skull is sort of the beginning of that. So, curious what your guys' thoughts were.
Manuel?
All right, yeah, I'll go. I liked the art. I enjoyed the art. It was serviceable. Nothing really notable about it, but this is what I've come to expect from like an Avengers story, or to a lesser extent, an X-Men story.
Lesser extent.
I like where it goes with what happens to Charles Xavier's brain. I mean, you have the most powerful brain in the Marvel universe, held by arguably one of the most disastrous people. That's not the word I'm looking for. Not disastrous.
Diabolical.
Villainous. Diabolical. Thank you. Most diabolical people in the Marvel universe. What will he do with it? I've read a bit about what goes on afterwards, and I haven't read this issue before now, and it's interesting. I really, really appreciate the fact that this is the inception of what is the villain's name?
Red Skull.
No, not this villain, but the villain he becomes when the brain is
the Red Onslaught, I think, is what they call it.
Onslaught. Yes, yeah. Onslaught. Yeah. So Onslaught is an interesting character in and of himself. It's nice to see the inception of like how the brain came about. I already knew that Charles Xavier died via Scott and his remorse eventually. Yeah, it was interesting-ish because it has X-Men, but I mean, yeah.
Okay, I'll follow up on that. So this feels more like an X-Men book than it feels like an Avengers book. I think the really Avengers are just there because government has mandated them to get some mutants on the team. That's why they're there. They don't seem to be especially happy about it, but they are complying with the government's rules. More of the story is really about X-Men characters, moving them forward. Wolverine at the funeral, and Storm arguing, fighting Scarlet Witch because she did that no more mutant shit. There was some conflict finally at the end, but and then talking to Cyclops, which at this time is probably one of the most hated used to be heroes in history at this time. This is when the full hate of Cyclops was sort of, either starting or really getting into gear. And then a whole bunch of evil characters at the end that I never see before and didn't really see enough to really care about them, even though it looks like they killed Scarlet Witch, but you know how that thing works. Now, here's the thing. If Professor X is dead and in the ground, how much of his brain cells are viable at this point? Right? All the cells are dead. The mass might be there.
Right. How does Red Skull even use the brain? I was totally confused by that when I originally read this, and I was like, this doesn't make any sense. You have to abandon that and suspend some disbelief in order to...
But basically, I think in the series, he sews this brain onto his own brain. and then all of a sudden, ooh, I can do stuff
Yeah,
now.
then he can, yeah.
Yeah. But he's insane, so what are you gonna do? So I felt like it was just an okay book. The art was okay, the story, the ideas were okay, but nothing that says, ooh, I gotta see what's happening next issue. It didn't move me to that point.
Okay.
It's one of those things I wanted to like and honestly, I read this when it came out, and I was probably more into it then than I am now.
Okay.
Maybe because I know the outcome, so that may have flavored my viewpoint of it. But I probably pay more attention to it now because I had to make sure I have a discussion about it later. I didn't like the way they drew Captain America. There's a lot of things in the art that sort of didn't quite do it for me. Though there were a couple of panels that were detailed and interesting. The book as a whole didn't. It was just sort of a middling fare. It was, it was okay. There's nothing wrong with it. The seeds are being laid for something else, but not enough here to say, ooh, where is this going?
Okay.
It just sort of, more logic than emotion is what it generated in me.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead. We'll move on. Emmanuel, your first issue of the week.
All right. My first issue is War of the Realms, Strikeforce, Land of the Giants. It is again a Marvel pick. It's issue number 1. And in order to really fully encapsulate what's going on, I submit to you a brief synopsis. After laying waste to the nine of the 10 realms, the Dark Elf King Malekith and his powerful allies have finally brought the War of the Realms to Midgard, the last realm standing. So Midgard being Earth. Now these Earth heroes have to rescue Thor, who was taken captive by Malekith, the Dark Elf King. And it's an interesting collection of heroes. You have the usual suspects: Spider-Man, Captain America, but then you also have this dynamic duo of Iron Fist and Luke Cage. Then you also have Wolverine. So these heroes go to essentially break Thor out of his captivity, and chaos and hilarity ensues.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead. Yeah, please.
So this book made me feel like if superheroes played Dungeons and Dragons, this is what would happen.
Yes.
I think I put in the notes Captain America and Spider-Man riding a unicorn sort of sums it up. I realized after the fact that it's not a unicorn, it's a Pegasus. Yeah, this was fantastic. It's the most random ass group of heroes ever put together, thrown into this comical scenario. Highly enjoyable from start to finish. The art was great. The dialogue was well written. Spider-Man has sort of a special spotlight on him throughout the episode or throughout the issue. And yeah, the helmet that lets him talk to the Pegasi, I guess the Pegasuses or the Pegasi, was a great little plot device. And the scene where Luke Cage is like, seriously, what the fuck, dude? You're talking to horses right now. Yeah, I don't really have anything bad to say. It was enjoyable. I loved it from start to finish.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, this is the kind of book I would have picked. So I feel you on this. Uh, the writing to me was great because everybody was funny.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of hard to write and every character get some shine, some funniness, and something that's uniquely theirs. Spider-Man, of course, usually gets the best funny lines in group books, but it was one of those things where it's just a fun ride. I enjoyed the ride. All the characters were more or less like I expect them to be, how I expect them to act in these situations. There was some heart in it. What did he call? What did the horse called Spider-Man? Noble Jester Warrior.
Yeah.
Right, which pretty much sums it up, right? So there's a very perceptive Pegasus there.
Right.
This was just fun. This was, Luke Cage saying stuff like, "What the fuck, man?" Luke Cage saying stuff. What is his Iron Fist? Because Iron Fist is kind of silly, and so he had his stuff. And even Wolverine, without trying to, was doing jokes. Right? He just didn't have time to do it, but he's still. Everyone was in character. The only person I think that didn't do jokes was Captain America.
Yeah, he was probably the most.
Right, serious. But he didn't trip on anyone else doing jokes.
No.
He didn't get upset or say, "Hey, we gotta get serious." He just he knew how to handle his people. And he said, "Let these mugs do what they do. I know they're good. They're noble jester warriors, so we're gonna get through this." And then the horse died, and that hurt a little bit. But it was good. It was fun. It evoked a lot of feels, and I felt good after. I felt satisfied that in this one shot of a story, I really got entertained. So I like this book. I recommend it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm glad you guys liked it. There's this scene where they're all picking weapons and armor for the great battle. And Wolverine suggests to Spider-Man the helmet. And Spider-Man's like, "Okay, sure." And then, which led to him not really knowing what the helmet did until the Pegasus started talking and he could understand it. And I just love the idea of Spider-Man name and communicating with a Pegasus. Like having a full-blown conversation. And then Luke Cage, staring into the cameras. What the fuck? What is going on? It's beautiful.
It was like a Finding Dory moment, right?
Yes.
Talking to the whales. Yeah, I want to call out the Daredevil cameo. That was really cool 2-page spread. Probably some of the best artwork I think in the book. Just the way that Daredevil was drawn. I'm really curious. Russ, I know you followed the whole War of the Realms event, right?
Yes.
Are there any other books that you know of where Daredevil has these powers?
And all of them, actually. Once he gets called in to take over the Golden Bridge and being the all-seeing Daredevil, he at least shows up, and he actually shows up physically in some of them. But he's in most of them, at least a little. And all the little different series that came across around us, that's a major part because he's transporting heroes to and from places because he's controlling the Bifrost. And he can see where to send them because they gave him temporary godhood so that he could do that. So he's at least showing up at least this much in almost all the series.
I'm interested to find if there's a book dedicated to his perspective because he is, as you may know, a dedicated Catholic. So being a dedicated Catholic and then having the powers of a god, that might cause some internal conflict. I don't know.
Well, there was that story. Yes, I don't know if you followed the original series, War of the Realms, not with all the colon this and colon that. That he does go through that. There is a conversation to be had and to be followed if you are interested in following that. I think War of the Realms went at least 6 issues. And then they had all the spinoffs, which probably went anywhere from 1 to 3 issues each.
Yeah.
So there's a lot there. And that conversation, and I read them all, that conversation does come up, but I won't spoil it beyond that.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, this was one that when it was going on and I was going to the comic shop, I just could not keep up with how many issues there were. I would have been buying at least 10 or 12 books every week just to follow this one series. So, but yeah, great pick.
Good pick. I agree. Good choice.
Thank you. All right. Hopefully I'll be 2 for 2. My next issue is Bang, Dark Horse comic. And the synopsis of this is it's a very spy-ish. Well, no, not ish. It is a very spy comic. And in the beginning, you think the main character is one person, but then they, get killed off. So, but then there's some story behind that as well. Did they really get killed off? Can this person really die? Is it a lineage like 007 where anybody can be 007 as a title? What's going on? So, you guys?
Well, when I saw the front page and they likened it to Uh, 1010. I don't know if you guys are old enough to know 1010.
I know,
Uh,
yeah, I know who it is. I've never really read any of
okay.
his
So
comics. Yeah,
there's a few animated series out there that are really good.
yeah,
The great thing about 1010 is while there's some science fiction to it, there's no powers, right?
yeah.
1010 is just a young reporter, like I want to say, who is the guy who takes photos for Lois Lane?
Jimmy
Jimmy
Olsen.
Olsen. 1010 is a Jimmy Olsen kind of character, but he's in the thick of it. He's a full-on reporter. He has a dog named Snowy, and they get into all kind of ridiculous stuff that is real to everyone else around. Gets knocked out all the fucking time. He always gets in danger. It's always cliffhangery. And I really liked it. And if you're looking for an animated series that has a long history, see if you could find that 1010 animated series. There's a couple of them, and it's worth your time. They're nicely done. Um, I like the spy aspect. Um, I wasn't necessarily a super fan of the art, but the art does justice to what's here. Um, this to me plays like a movie. This to me plays like Act One of a movie, right? If you look at it, there's nothing here that can't be done in a movie,
Yeah.
right? You have a little bit of action. Starts off just like a movie starts off with some action to get you activated, get your blood flowing, right? And then that gets semi-resolved, and then it sets up another mystery. And then the next act, we go somewhere here. We got a new guy who looks like Michael B. Jordan wannabe, um, but not drawn as good as he could be. Um, and then he goes through and does his thing. And like I said, it's just like Act One of a movie. And to me, that's a compliment. That's a compliment. It has all the things you look for in Act One of a movie in this first issue. You got your action, you got your conflict, you got your mystery, and every time something gets revealed, something new, mysterious comes up, and then you makes you want to know more. So
Mhm.
if and then you find out there's something even bigger than what you saw close to the end, and then you're like, okay, and then you want to know more. Here it is, second act. So I think it's written like the first act of a very good movie.
Yeah.
Uh, and there's no reason why. I was looking for this to be Skybound because Scotch is how Skybound does a lot of their stuff. Uh, but and I like that Keanu Reeves said it was a blend of James Bond and 1010 because that means Keanu Reeves reads 1010, and me and him
Yeah.
are watched it at least, and me and him are on that same page. So I felt good about that. Um, Overall, good book, interesting book. I am curious enough to read at least one more issue. Um, there's a level to action and adventure and interest. Some of it just like you get to a certain level and you gotta follow it. This just crosses the threshold
Yeah.
enough for me to say, yeah, I want to know more. It doesn't. It's not up here, but whatever that line is to say, I'm curious enough. It crosses that threshold, and so that's sort of where it sits for me. What do you think, man?
Yeah, so I have all of the same. I had all the same impressions of this book that you did. I feel like so Matt Kind or Kint. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. He did Divinity 1 and 2, I believe, for Valiant, and he's done some other books. I feel like he found out that Idris Elba was going to be James Bond, or he was being considered to be James Bond, and then they sort of walked that back a little bit, and you know there was that whole controversy where it was like, oh, you know, can he be James Bond and this and that, and I feel like Matt Kint sat down and was like, I'm gonna write what I think it's gonna be or how it would play out, and so that's kind of the vibe that I got was like if he sat down to write the Idris Elba James Bond movie, this is what it would be. This is how it would start. Um, and I liked it. I thought it was really cool. It does just sort of crest on intrigue for me because it's almost like, um, you know, he's meeting Ian Fleming at the end, and I don't know where that's going. Is that going to be? Um, there was that movie with Will Ferrell where everything was everything
Someone
that
was typing.
yeah, everything that woman wrote like sort of dictated his
Yeah.
life. I'm curious
I
if
know what you mean.
this has that same element to it where like
Mm.
there's a supernatural thing to the author and that's going to affect the story later on. I'm not really sure, but it just just gets there, and it's like kind of interested to read the next one, but I'm not really sure. It could disappoint, you know. Yeah, overall it was good. The artwork was a little disappointing. It was kind of, I don't want to say bland because that sounds mean, but it's not. It might be the colors. I don't know. There's just nothing that really pops. It carries the story, but it doesn't. Nothing really jumps out at me. I also got some Archer vibes with the very beginning, and I was kind of sad to see that character die so quickly because I felt like he was gonna be that type of a person. But yeah, this could go in a number of different directions, and it's well put together overall. And yeah, another good pick, dude.
Yeah, and I do like to add something else. I do like the fact that they made you care a little bit about this character in the beginning, and they just killed him.
Right.
Like they went through all this trouble to make you think, I like this dude, right? And if this movie's about him, I can roll with that. And like, oh, sorry, dude, you're dead. I'm like, oh shit. Right? Why are you fucking with my emotions like this, right?
Yeah.
So I thought that to me that was good writing. Like I said, it's just enough. There's quality there. It's just enough to get me to see. I want to see at least one more episode. It did those things.
Yeah, are we gonna have like a revolving door of what is it, Conrad? Is that the?
Yeah. So, what does that mean that the black dude dies too?
Well,
Oh
that's
man,
what I'm saying. I don't know. Like you could potentially kill him off in this because they've already established that that's possible. You know.
Thomas
right?
Cord.
Yeah.
Thomas Cord is the name. Yeah.
Cord.
And as soon as you kill him, another younger him busts in the door. Like, what the fuck? And then we have all of that. So I don't know where it's going to go. And like I said, it's just enough to say, let me at least check out one more issue. I haven't done that yet.
All right.
All right. So I guess we'll move on to my first book, which is Assassination. It's an Image comic. And the best way I can explain it without spoiling it is 50 of the world's top assassins walk into a bar. ... So tell me what you guys thought.
Manuel, you want to go first?
The art style, I would say it's simple. It's not overstated. It is, you get what you expect. There's nothing too great. The faces seem like they're not too detailed. I'll put it that way. The faces aren't too detailed, but they do establish emotion. I really like the eclecticness of the characters, of the assassins. One of them's name is Tarkingen. His last name is kind of weird. Tarkingen is his last name, but his first name is Fuck, which is in and of itself hilarious.
Yes.
So it's really great to see the different characters, their personalities, the characters of the characters, and they're all assassins. So even if you have an old-looking person, old-looking man, or like this young, phase-looking girl, they're all assassins, all equally as deadly. Well, maybe not equally as deadly. There's levels, but it's fun. I like it. I like the fact that they all have this same job, the same profession, but yet still they have vastly different personalities. And then they meet it's not a convention, it's a gathering of minds in order to be employed, but it still seems like a convention where some of them are like fangirling, fanboying off of the others that have been in the game for longer. I like that aspect, to just look in their world and be a part of their world for that moment. And then, as Russ is prone to do, is pick a series with a lot of murder. So it definitely serves that, checks that off the box. Murder.
Right. Yeah, the artwork kind of reminds me of an animated series, the way that it's drawn. It has that quality to it. I liked it. I get Tarantino vibes, so it's almost like Reservoir Dogs to a certain extent, throwing these types of people together. And yes, they're murdering people and all that, but they're also having regular conversations with each other, which is kind of, that sort of vibe. I don't know if I would continue to read this because it doesn't have that one aspect of like, I don't know. I'm not really sure like where it's gonna go or like what's gonna happen. Um, there's a lot of characters to try and follow, so I don't really, I don't really know who I'm rooting for or any of that. It was okay. I didn't really enjoy it all that much, to be honest. But yeah, a lot of murder.
So what I liked about it, some of the what I liked about it was that there's a lot of different characters, like a lot of character studies going on in this one issue,
Yeah,
right? And characters that are distinct, right? Like you get Fernando, who only calls himself Fernando, and and murders amazingly, but with style. And I like that. If this was a movie, right? Imagine a movie, or better yet, this is the animated series that you didn't see coming. It's already drawn that way,
yeah,
right? Assassination is the animated series you didn't see coming. And all these new streaming services, they need a good one. This is someone where you can have a rotating cast, you can make up new characters, right? In a world of assassins, there's always somebody that needs to die. This could easily be a good season of the I don't want to say a PG-13, but maybe R minus because of the level of murder depends on. But you can do things in a movie, or especially an animated series, where you see the slow motion where this guy kills 3 people with 1 bullet, right?
yeah,
So to me, it looks like this is something that should be made into a series. If this was an animated series, I think you'd watch it. You know
yeah,
what I mean? As a book, it doesn't rise to the point. I think most of these, especially if you're not writing for Marvel and DC, I feel like everybody's writing to get their series in the door.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
felt like this concept is rife with potential, whether or not they bring it off. And this is an ongoing series. Let me see what issue they're in right now. Five issues. It may end in 5 issues. And I guess they're probably only going to be a very few. Oh, so I'm looking at the 5 issues. On the second page of the first issue, they have all these listed assassins, but on the final issue or the 5th issue, there are only 5 left.
Okay. I
So
That was going to be one of my
go ahead.
questions. Is it all
Yeah,
internal conflict amongst the assassins, or is there any type of external force that they have to
yeah,
face? But it seems like it's
yeah. They're all crossed off. So the story, you'll get into the story of probably all the people that died, how and why they died, because you're looking into this world.
right.
But fuck, Tarkington is still around. If you care about him at all. So I liked it because I liked the potential of it. I like the animated series call out because where is this? Where is there a place for this? Because there's no real animated spy killing series other than Archer, which is more trying to be funny than anything else, to
Yeah.
me anyway. All right. So what if stop trying to be Batman and just write an animated series as interesting characters that you just watch and you don't know what's going to happen next, and you don't get to know until it happens. But the characters are vibrant and interesting. And I thought each of these characters has potential. That's why I chose the book. So I'm sorry I didn't rise above the crest, but I did enjoy it nonetheless. Shall we move on to my next book?
Yeah.
My next book is Red Hood and the Outlaws, the latest one, volume 2, number 43. And I'm just going to say what did it for me is Bizarro. You guys, lean in. Go ahead.
Bizarro with a beard. Yeah. So this one I enjoyed a little bit more than Assassination. The artwork is fantastic. It feels like a 90s book to me. Um, there were a couple of panels where the faces were kind of weird, but otherwise there's all kinds of stuff going on, and it's really a visual feast, a lot of action. Um, it has some certain elements to it. The magical and the mystery is kind of cool. It pulls you in. Not really sure what's gonna happen. Um, I'm curious if there's a better jumping on point for the Red Hood and the Outlaws, though. Because I was kind of confused at, like, I've never seen Bizarro as part of like a superhero team, but I know that Jason Todd's kind of crazy and he's not really a hero. He's more of an anti-hero. And so those are the things that I thought about and wasn't really sure about as I was reading through it. I feel like your note in the show notes with Bizarro being compared to Thori the Murder Dog was pretty apt. The way that they have him talk is perfect and is the way I always envisioned Bizarro talking. But yeah, it's I'm really curious to see sort of where this goes. The cover is sort of foreshadowing what happens at the end of the book, and that's kind of interesting. So, Manuel, what are your thoughts?
I was intrigued by the fact that Bizarro seems a lot more intelligent than he used to. At the beginning of this inception of Bizarro, he was, if I'm not mistaken, created by Lex Luthor, and so he spoke little to no words at all. Didn't have a concept of language, and then Lex kind of educated him on who Superman is. Lex created Bizarro in order to be, a Superman of his own, a pet Superman. But then Lex, being completely devoid of goodness, actually started to care for Bizarro. Bizarro gained a unique place in his heart. And if I'm not mistaken, to Lex's knowledge, Bizarro died. Since then, obviously, he's alive. And then he got trapped in some sort of something. I didn't read those issues, but now he seems a lot more eloquent. He can formulate concepts and speak.
But his pronouns always suck.
Yeah, his pronouns.
I am getting sick of this.
His pronouns are horrible, but I think that's what kind of is endearing about him as well. And then there's a strong as Superman, which I appreciate. There's been some incarnations of Bizarro where his cellular structure is deteriorating, so he's not as strong. He only has limited capabilities. He's like a Superman light. Whereas here, if I'm not mistaken, this is a full-fledged physical Superman, but just mentally completely different. Well, not completely, but mentally different. And according to Jason Todd, a lot more heart.
Yeah,
it's arguable.
Okay, so this is issue 43 in the series. So this is years in the making.
Right.
Bizarro has gone on a journey in this book, in this series, that has changed him. So, and part of it in this series, maybe closer to the beginning, he found that he could drink kryptonite and it made him super smart.
What?
Right? Because he's anti-Superman, right? So they found because he took his kryptonite and it made him like super, I believe we can reach into the quantum realm and, whatever. And so for a while, he was sneaking off, taking synthetic kryptonite, keeping it involved, and he was their tech guy. Wow. Right? He was getting so good. His brain was so great. He was predicting evil before it happened and deploying people. And he is went way to one place, right? Okay. And then just like, what is that? Hey, George, he didn't want to lose that intelligence. He didn't want to be stupid again. But that means he needed to keep getting kryptonite in order to sustain that. So there was that battle. So this is one of the many battles that he has had. So if you were following this series, which, I say you'll get a graphic novel, you would see his evolution, which has really made him an endearing character. Like at this point in the game, you do love him, right? And he is worthy of that love. And he's still got the power of Superman, and he has a different level of intelligence, but he's his own guy, right? He's his own dude. And then, when Matt, you brought up last time, is Red Hood crazy? Well, all three of these guys are crazy.
Okay.
All right. Red Hood and the Outlaws is a crazy version of the DC Trinity. This is a crazy Superman, but you allow him to continue. This is a crazy Batman, and this is your crazy Wonder Woman, who may actually be older than Wonder Woman, does come from Paradise Island, and used to train everybody how to fight. And so she's also eternally young, eternally beautiful, and eternally can kick your ass.
Yeah, he has the Red Hood has some dialogue where he talks about her. Um,
Yeah, and the Red Hood is loving her, right?
yeah,
How can you not, right? And so there's a whole bunch of stories, and when that gets dealt with, but Bizarro and her, Bizarro calls her Red Her, got trapped into another universe, and they couldn't get back. And Jason Todd is really not smart enough to bring them back, so they actually went on another journey, and that's sort of where Bizarro got his beard because they were trapped for out of time and different universes and dealing with that. It was just him and Wonder Woman esque, whatever her name is right now,
Artemis.
Artemis.
Artemis Grace.
So Bizarro is worthy of your love. I would say that, and and he's at a level of intelligence. He's just not clever. He's not an idiot, but he's not clever.
Right.
Right. This am anti.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah, I could see myself picking up issue 44. The untitled Evil So Ancient It Defies a Name. Does it get a name later on? Do we find out what this ancient evil is? Yeah, I thought this was a good pick. Right. Yeah, I think what did I made a note about it because Emmanuel said something about a DC Captain America. Um, yeah, my note was I don't feel like he has all his shit together. Like he's a little I don't want to say crazy, but like he's a gray character here. The way that he's written, like you don't know if he's for the U.S. and all that, but yeah, what are his true motives and why is he there? And you know, I don't get the sense that he's all about America. Be eat your vegetables, and it's not like that at all. Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. No, one out of two. All right. So I did put some stuff in the show notes at the end. I don't know if both of you got a chance to check out the AT&T might shut down DC link. Did you guys see that news story? Okay, maybe we read the same news story. I do kind of want to talk about that a little bit because this is crazy to me. I know that um, some of the other articles that I read, they were talking about how the comics division of AT&T Warner Brothers, DC, the publishing arm, has been a write off for a lot of years. Um, so I was kind of curious, sort of what your thoughts were on what if DC the comics were to shut down, if AT&T and T and Warner Brothers sold off DC, who are some potential purchasers, right? Okay. Right. Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Rid of Danny Dio. There's no 5G universe. There's no AT&T looming over said we're going to fire you. That all goes away, and it shows AT&T that DC is willing to comply by firing Dan Dio. Yes.
Yeah.
If that is the case, if he was,
Yeah. If there's any truth to this, again, we're all dealing with rumors. So,
yeah.
but
Personally, I don't think DC is going anywhere because I mean it's storytelling. Storytelling has been around for eons, years and years. To be made. There's going to be some revenue to be drawn in. So
yeah,
they still have a company. And
yeah,
plus the characters themselves, if they age them up and then have like the 5G, if they have the spin-offs of these characters, I mean, they could do that in a certain universe and do that run and see how that goes, but not place so much of everything onto that bus and say it all lives and dies with the success or failure of this. Like, I don't think that should be the case. It should be that they should try it out, see how it goes. Maybe not make that their main universe. Just have the other universes have Superman stay his age because they have what's called an elastic timeline, right? So the characters that we've known for years and years and years before my birth, before your birth, Russ, they've existed. So there is some love there. There's longevity there. Just try another universe. Try the descendants of the ones that we know and love. See how that works. But let's not put all our eggs in that basket.
Yeah, and let's just be real. DC is killing it on TV compared to Marvel. DC ain't canceling those shows, right? Marvel just canceled like 8 shows in the last 3 months, right? DC shows are still going strong. Ain't nobody trying. They still got other ones on the way, right? They got Stargirl coming up, right?
Don't even mention the animated movies.
Yes.
Oh, amazing.
Right. So I'm not going to let someone tell me that they're going to just die. Right. We still had Harley Quinn, which may not have been the best, but I'm sure it's made its money back. I know there's going to be a Harley Quinn too.
Right.
So, all you need is a couple of decent movies. Wonder Woman is coming out. Was it this year or next year? That's going to do well just because. Mm-hmm. Right. So I'm not really worried about, because the movies make more money than the comics anyway. So all you need is a couple of good movies, and the comics are good for the next 5 years. You know what I mean? And remember that the comics are the stories of the seeds for the movies anyway.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
Most of that, and so you have to keep their creation going. So, in worst case, they could just scale back and do what they normally do. How many Batman books are there? Right now,
yeah.
Right, most of DC's line is heavily peppered with Batman, right?
Yeah.
Or Batman-esque or Batman-adjacent characters, including Red Hood. So, Batman alone could keep DC alive. I'm not buying into that. It's interesting, the idea of it, but I remember when Marvel was about to die.
Yeah, when they filed for Chapter 11 in the 90s.
Right, and they gave away Spider-Man. They sold Spider-Man rights and Submariner rights and Hulk rights and X-Men rights just to stay afloat.
Now look at them.
Yeah, buying it all back little by little. So, and DC's characters are just as old and amazing as Marvel's. So I'm not at all worried.
No, I didn't think that DC would go away. I was just curious, sort of, if another corporate overlord took DC, what that would kind of look like. The reason I even brought it up is I was in the comic shop this week and I was talking to the owner and I was like, hey, I got some DC books I'm gonna bring in. Like I don't really want them in my collection anymore. He's like, no, hold on to your DC books. I'm like, why? What the hell happened? And that was when he started explaining this to me and some other people, were in the store talking about it. So I thought it would be interesting to hear what your guys' thoughts were.
Hype and propaganda.
Yep.
Well, it's interesting because that was the other aspect of it that I wanted to touch on. Do you think shit like this hits the internet because they want people to run out and start buying books?
That's good marketing.
The idea is I need to keep DC as a model, as a concept in the news cycle. The more current it becomes, the more you're likely to buy books, the more you're likely to, whatever your reaction is, there is no downside to DC, the company, by raising the awareness.
Yeah.
And so whether it's famous or infamous is irrelevant because the awareness makes you think about it and creates more purchases. So I think that, none of this hurts DC in any way.
All right. And on that note, gentlemen, we've just hit an hour. So I think we'll call it. And until next week, do you guys have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I actually wanted to bring this up. I'm still not an X-Men fan.
Well, that's your loss, dude. Sorry, I can't help you. Maybe there's some appeal you can take.
I agree. You guys are winning at life because you like me.
Just down to the amount of things to like. Why aren't you liking more?